Welcome back, everybody, to Phazon Labs, powered by World 1-1. This is our brand spanking new Metroid pitch show. We were going off the theory of we were going to make this because Nintendo refuses to make a new Metroid game for us, but that's obviously all different now. So instead, we're going to take the time between then and now to have fun with the lore as we know it to exist today, and we'll make adjustments after October. And we'll keep doing this to talk about, what maybe happens after Dread, once Dread comes out finally. But in the meantime, I am, as always, your host, Larry the Bearded Wonder. Joining me this evening is my co-pilot, Isabel the Baby Bramman.
Hello.
And joining us this evening is Alex, the HampsterBomb.
Hello, Internet.
For those of you that are around the YouTubes, you may have caught a glimpse of him on Doominal Crossing's YouTube Dread reaction video. Mm-hmm. I saw he slipped you in there.
Yeah, it's really weird. I recently found a bunch of those compilation reaction things people do, and my face is so prominently shown in so many of the thumbnails, and I haven't gotten to watch them yet. It's just so uncomfortable. But yeah, you could say I freaked out a bit.
Understandably so.
I think we all did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Metroid is Metroid is my favorite game franchise, and I would have told you this weeks ago before a certain announcement kind of changed everything about the face of new Metroid games, and kind of made this whole spin-off series, like you just said, a bit of a joke, but fortunately, what I had prepared for a pitch for you guys is a game that I think could actually happen. Not some crazy off-the-wall thing that is probably going to make people question what the heck is Nintendo up to, even though that happens all the time. Honestly, I don't want them to do that with Metroid anymore. We've tried it with Federation Force, and we've tried that weird stuff with Other M. I want them to sit down and just think about what makes Metroid so good. And I don't want to already take this off, but was there any other intro stuff you could say before I completely steal your show? Because I'm sorry.
I don't know, just the usual. First and foremost, if you haven't already, make sure you slide us into your RSS feed where you can pick us up every week on Monday mornings. And if you've binged through all the episodes of Phazon Labs and you're hungry for some more of our stuff, make sure you check out the World 1-1 podcast, all in the same RSS feed, so you're already where you should be. You can follow us on Twitter at Phazon Labs. You can find the main show at World1_1 podcast. You can find Isabel over there working hard at Metroid35. And Alex, where can they find you, just so they know?
I am on YouTube as HampsterBomb, and you can find me on Twitter as HampsterBombAlex. There's somebody out there using the username HampsterBomb, and I've been trying to get it for the longest time, but anyway. But yeah, I make all sorts of general gaming stuff of whatever I like playing and talking about, and lucky for you guys, my favorite game series is Metroid, so there's a ton of that on there.
Perfect.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's it might be mine too. I'm assuming the handful of sizable tattoos is probably a giveaway for anybody that ever sees them. So, So, word is, Alex over here has a pitch for us. So let's get right into it. What do you got, my man?
I do. So let's just say today, you let me walk into Nintendo and say I get to make a new Metroid game. So I'm not going to be saying some crazy funny thing. I want to actually see this game happen. Now, I don't know how. I'm going to try and make some really crazy odd points you might be raising eyebrows at. So if I say anything weird, feel free to stop me, because I will talk your ears off if you let me. So
weird is what we do here.
Okay, good.
We made a Metroid Outlaw, so
yeah, I mean, right after Metroid Outlaw, this isn't going to be the big eyebrow raiser. I'm not going to try and add that many odd new elements to this. This is still going to be easily fitting in the Metroid universe. If anything, this is the Metroid game I kind of wish we had right now. So just to start things off, I feel like before getting any further into this, I want to say chronologically where this needs to go. This should be even before Metroid 1. Because I want to play the Metroid game where I actually get to be Samus in her rise to this intergalactic fame as a bounty hunter. She's this superhuman, basically, who goes around and saves people all over the galaxy and makes money doing it. Why don't I ever get to do that? I mean, sure, we get a couple of her contracts, but it's not like she needed the money when she went to Talon 4 or Ether. She's just doing it because she's awesome and has no other reason to do it other than she's awesome and likes freaking saving people around the galaxy. So I want to see this rise to fame, and I want to play it. To do that, I'm going to have to add some weird gameplay elements, so we'll get there. But anyway, also, I want to keep this before Metroid 1 because I want to keep the Metroids alive. I want to make sure that those things are still out there, because I don't want to get too much into this, but I got a feeling after Metroid 5 Dread, the Metroids are probably going to be all but eliminated and leaving Samus as the one and only living Metroid, changing the title's implications, which also might mean everybody who looks at Samus and says, oh, look, that's Metroid, are now kind of right. Anyway, so as I mentioned, this is going to be about that rise to fame for Samus. So the main goal of this is to like rethink and innovate what Metroid games actually do well. And I'm also kind of looking at other Metroidvanias as well, because there's a lot of them that have done tons of experimentation in all this time we've been waiting for a new Metroid game. So digging deeply into that and all that kind of innovative stuff, I could honestly keep you all day, and I'm going to just try and avoid it because we've seen a lot of innovation just in Metroid for Samus Returns compared to Dread. Look at what they did with the counter. Just that alone, they're doing so much and they're learning so much. Even from, say, Fusion and what they told us in the Treehouse about how Adam is going to work, that is leaps and bounds better because you're basically taking out what was bad about Adam and you're just making him like Prime style lore and maybe just like giving us just the bits of story that we want and not, you know, locking me off from exploring and playing the game. And you're basically just saying, this is exactly where you need to go, Samus. So instead of that, let's start it here. I'm not going to do like a teaser trailer like you've done last time. If I had more time, I might have come up with one. But anyway, let's just say that this game is going to begin with like a brief backstory, kind of like how we've gotten in some of the others, and no longer than those. I want to keep this brief. So Samus is starting by leaving the Galactic Federation, becoming independent, and being a bounty hunter. And through this intro, we're kind of alluding to her training that she's gotten in her first couple jobs as a bounty hunter. So she's still green, but she's basically just starting. So she's experienced, but has none of that fame yet. And the whole goal of this game is to get her from this point to where she is powerful and famous enough to be admired and respected by the Galactic Federation enough to be trusted to take such a mission as Metroid 1, which is basically a genocidal mission of go to this planet, delete this entire alien race, and blow it up. And they're just sending one person to do this. That's outrageous. So this whole game, I feel like, needs to exist in order to explain how on earth she's able to become so powerful. So this is going to be bringing us to scanning and getting a list of contract bounties in her ship. So like right after we get this introduction, she's actually like seeing a bunch of information on her screen. And this could be something simple, kind of like what we see in the beginning of Prime, just like text going off the screen. We're kind of scrolling through, and for the most part, this is like foreign languages, alien text. We don't really need to see this gobbledygook. But there's a converted galactic currency somehow shown so that the player can recognize at least the significance of what she's looking at. And just in general, before we go any further, I want to keep text to a minimum in this game. I think Metroid is at its best, say like Super, when you can tell a really artful and amazing story in Super Metroid and not say a word. Technically, yeah, there are some words that they say in the very beginning just to catch the player up to speed, and that is all. It's just what's necessary. It's not like we need to, you know, stop each time and kind of direct her around. The fun, I think, in Metroid games is carving out your own adventure, and I really want players to also feel free, like you made this journey to make Samus this powerful. So anyway, Samus finds one thing that catches her eye, and it pays way more than the rest of the stuff on this list. So even the player looks at this like, whoa! She sees the location, targets it in her ship, flies off to this planet, title card, whatever, goes to the new planet of, I don't care, so placeholder name, Wet Sock. She goes to the planet of Wet Sock. You can come up with a better name than call it that. I don't mind. But for now, she's going to wet sock. So the gameplay at this point is finally going to start. So she touches down on this planet. She's able to move around, and there are crowds of alien creatures that are all just thrilled to see her, that she's here responding to this contract that they've put out. They're practically bowing before her. And so before I go any further again, this is going to be a totally 2D game. I was thinking, I really like the idea of trying to implement that 2.5-ish D that Other M tried, but to avoid having too many ideas at once here, let's just stick to 2D. And honestly, just watching Metroid Dread, it's so breathtaking. You don't need to do that right now. I think we could save that for later. So we'll stick to a purely 2D Metroid game, just so that we can easily visualize this and we don't have to strain too hard to get this to work. So anyway, these creatures, they're kind of reptilian, but still humanoid shape. You know how we got like the Luminoth and the Chozo, so it's still like that same kind of body type, but they're more of like a reptilian, so we can identify that they're visually different. They're wearing
you've
robes.
got the Reptilicus in Corruption.
That is true. I haven't played Corruption in the longest time, even though I have a literal poster behind me right now. So yeah, you got me there. But anyway, I wanted them to. It'll be clear later why I wanted to look a certain way. But anyway, they got some robes, some armor plates, but not really warfare armor plates. It's more like a bureaucratic kind of thing. So this is not like a super violent race. They don't appear to be. They're bowing to Samus, and a couple of them are actually like leading her around. And this is like a very simple opening, just so you know, if you think of like the opening to Super Metroid, where you're pretty much just following on a path, and the player is visually getting the story this way because they're not speaking to her. You follow along these reptilian creatures, and it's, like I said, just a simple platforming. You descend several rooms down below, and you enter into this large white room. They're still leading you, and a huge metal door slams down behind Samus, and she is locked in the room.
Ooh.
Two creatures drop their guises and draw long, expandable electrical spears. Their armor now shifts into something much more menacing, and now you are in combat. The game is now kind of giving you like a little teaser on how combat is going to function. At this point, Samus has her basic power suit, power beam. I want her to have some missiles, so give her about 25 or so, and even 5 energy tanks. Don't worry, I will take them away. So, at the very least, she has them here. Now, this is a battle that you are supposed to lose. So if you think of once again the battle in Super, I love Super, but I honestly didn't think of the correlations at the beginning of this, but it seems to be coming to me right now. But this is a battle that you really aren't supposed to be able to win. But say you're an experienced player and you take down these two guys. After you do that, 3 more drop in their place, and now the ground has certain zones that start getting electrified, making it a little bit more treacherous. Say you're able to take these guys out too, then the walls start getting electrified and 4 more drop in. If you're able to take them down, you actually get a chance at defeating the game's first boss, who is dropped into the room with you. Effectively, this is trying to kill you. And if you're able to defeat this guy, who is like a huge, heavily mutated lizard version of these guys, kind of akin to an Omega Pirate if we're going to correlate the species over, you have the ability to defeat them early. And if you defeat this boss, just like the Omega Pirate, this guy collapses on Samus, intentionally stunning her against the floor with a heavy electric shock, which inevitably defeats her. But, like I said, if you do defeat this boss, it's going to change things later. So, for the most part, we just kind of touched down this planet. We just started this combat tutorial, and it fades to black after your normal death screen, which really isn't going to be a death. It's more like a knockout screen. So no matter how you get taken out in this, you're going to inevitably fade out from black, and Samus is going to awaken in her Zero suit with her arms and legs attached to this huge holding cell, and she's just strapped down in this area with all of her stuff gone. Now, you can struggle a bit and just kind of moving the analog stick a bit. You're just trying to move in different directions. Eventually, you can break free of this. And by eventually, I just mean like a couple tugs, and she'll only be able to get 1 arm free. She'll get her right arm out. Now, by getting her right arm out, the first thing she does is reaches it up to her ear, and you get a new tutorial introducing the scan visor, which is going to work effectively like it does in Prime 2D. If you've played that, the fan project. Effectively, I really don't know why this isn't just a thing in 2D Metroid since then. I get why they didn't put it in Samus Returns, because, you know, they were making a remake, but it was just too smart of a way to give the player lore and story in a way that really isn't invading on the gameplay at all. So I think it's just too interesting to put in here, especially when you're trying to tell a story without mandatory words. So anyway, now once you have this scan visor, Samus is able to look around the scene and scan certain things, which lets her learn about this race, get a little bit of lore, and discover that there is actually a paralyzer gun within her reach of her right arm. Once you scan it, she's able to equip it. She automatically blasts away her rest of her restraints. She's now completely free. You can roam around your cell. Once you do that, you can discover a ventilation duct, blast that away, crawl through it. And just to mention it, the power grip, not necessary in this game. You just have that. It'd be a little weird to have that beforehand. So this is officially when the game technically sets you loose. You could really go anywhere of this huge map, but you kind of have nothing, and you want to get your stuff back. So there's a reason to want to stay in this facility and hunt down where the rest of your stuff is. So this is going to begin with Samus like a stealth combat section, kind of like the ending of Zero Mission. However, the enemies aren't going to be nearly as brutal this time, because that was an endgame area for a reason. However, I want this to be a reason for players to understand that they can play stealthy if they want to, and how to do it by going in and out of... You can either fight enemies if you want to. If they see you, they're not going to like blare the alarms until you run away and I'll charge you like Zero Mission. This obviously needs to be a little simpler so that the player isn't completely flabbergasted at the beginning of this, because I basically just beat them up and locked them up. Yeah, I don't want to make it even worse by locking them up repeatedly. So anyway, if you explore this area, this is going to allow Samus to find various lore on why she was targeted. So basically, this race, if I'm going to just kind of spoil that early, the race is studying and envying different races like the Chozo and other very advanced races out there, and deciding to take advantage of Samus, who is sporting Chozo gear, and admittedly a little green, and underselling how powerful she is, to try and reverse engineer all of this Chozo technologies that she's got so they can take advantage of it. So, in different branches of this lab, this huge lab that you get to explore, her upgrades that were stolen from her, and a couple extra, just because she wasn't using, say, for example, the Morph Ball, or, you know, maybe the Morph Ball Bomb, they can also be thrown in here, too, just because they're early and simple upgrades that I think she should be able to access in here. Each one of these is stored in a completely different, like, lab area. They're reverse engineering them separately. So you have reason to go off in different directions. You could maybe scan with your scan visor and figure out maybe this direction is going to give me the arm cannon back, or this one's going to give me the morph ball, and you'll be able to figure out what you would need based on, you know, scanning that. So the last upgrade of this segment that you get inevitably will be the power suit, and that's the one that's guarded by what was that opening boss, unless he was fought already. If you did fight him, instead you see his body laying there in the room as engineers are working on him, trying to revive him, basically make a metaform of him. And they are who turn hostile and must be defeated, but they're not nearly as tough as him. This is really like you got to fight the guy early. So, Samus, I kind of mentioned this earlier, but I want to go back to this because it's an odd thing. Samus can actually equip her power beam and missiles while in the Zero Suit, which basically kind of looks like the Justin Bailey design, just an arm cannon on Zero Suit. I don't know if we need the pink jumpsuit and the green hair, but I'll leave that up to your discretion.
Bring them back.
I've got no reason why that shouldn't come back. But anyway, the reason being is the game all around is going to have stealth options for the player. So if you want to avoid combat, you see something that's really dangerous, you've got the option to try and swap into Zero Suit, who might have better capability of sneaking around into smaller, tighter locations that maybe you need, like maybe the Morph Ball can't do for whatever reason. But this way you can actually interchangeably go between Zero Suit and Power Suit, but it's not a detriment to the player. You can play this the way that you want. If you want to run around gunning everything down, totally fine. Then you effectively had an intro section like the end of Zero Mission, which nobody complained about. But this time you actually have it, and you can use it throughout the main game. So because she can equip this power beam and missiles, that way she's able to unlock stuff before she just gets the power beam. Because in Zero Mission, it's a little... I mean, of course, it's supposed to be a big triumphant thing when you get your whole suit back all at once, but some part of me kind of wants to see what happens when we have the opposite, when you slowly work your way up to it from absolute zero with nothing. So you escape this facility, you defeat that boss, and Samus is not going to leave this place empty-handed. This is effectively, if I'm going to make a weird comparison here, to Breath of the Wild, this area was the Great Plateau.
Oh, okay.
And as soon as you have defeated this boss, you got to the point where you've reached the exit, a group of groveling reptilians are going to offer Samus something in exchange for their lives, and you can choose to accept it or to kill them anyway. If you accept it, which basically walk up to them and interact, it provides Samus with currency. This game is going to introduce how money is going to work in the game. This is the biggest odd thing that... there's another odd thing I'm going to be adding here, but I feel like if we're going to make a bounty hunting Metroid game, we got to have money. Whether I think it works or not, but the more I thought about it, I think it actually might work okay. The more, I look at it, I'm thinking, I don't want to get too far into this being a Castlevania RPG where you're grinding up money. That's really not the goal here. The goal was, if you allow Samus in a massive 2D Metroid game to go anywhere and find goodies all over the place, inevitably, she's going to find the 100th or so missile expansion, and it won't be special. You're going to find you got a couple dozen energy tanks already, and what's another one? It doesn't matter anymore. So instead, keep those special, but instead give the player an incentive to actually have another sort of buff that they can get, which is getting currency. And so when you have money, you can use it to power up your beam weapons damage or the rate of fire, or other incremental growth buffs that make the player feel like they're slowly getting stronger, but like the game design knows, hold them back a bit and they're very slowly getting stronger. It's really not much, but it's something to make you feel like you are growing, because that's a really, really important part of Metroid as far as I'm concerned. Maybe the most important part of starting very small and frail and ending like an absolute powerhouse.
So is this like an upgrade system where you buy upgrades, like smaller upgrades?
Yes, based on what you have. So say she just left this facility and she has only got that power beam and a couple missiles. Then you go to a station, which is going to be maybe near save stations, or you might have to go to your ship. I don't want it to be too inconvenienced, but so you've got some place that you can go where you can see the current Chozo technology you have equipped, or maybe other new items that you've got equipped as well. I mean, for a game on the scale that I want, I would like to see plenty of new interesting abilities and Aeon abilities even come back if possible. Story-wise, that might be a little weird if Samus canonically finds Aeon on SR388. I'm not sure that's positive, but...
as far as I know, it's the only place it's actually come up yet. Aside from Dread, which has
ZDR, it's also right
back to SR388.
Right, and I'm assuming she's just using this knowledge that she had from SR388 to create this Aeon technology from Dread. But regardless, if it works, then sure, make it work in there. Because easily you could say, I want this Aeon ability to charge faster, and you're effectively, like you said, just kind of buying upgrades. And I think that's so that the player, once again, you're stretching out the amount of things that they can find, but also you're letting them kind of customize the kind of Samus that they want to be. And it's not just, I ran into a couple energy tanks, missile expansions, and I found the grapple beam kind of early, which, is interesting enough, but just to make it a little bit more spicy, I think. Because what's so fascinating about Breath of the Wild is watching how people play the game completely differently. Now,
break it.
Yeah, sure, yeah. Though I honestly think, not to go into too much of a tangent, it's relevant. I think what would have helped Breath of the Wild the most would have been more permanent upgrades to Link, say like a hook shot so he can access a couple new areas. So that way the player sees things they can't do and is able to go back and get them, which is something Metroid does so well. So doing this over a giant 2D map, I feel like could really, really help this. So I mentioned before that you don't have to accept that offer that these groveling reptilians give you. If you decide to deny it and kill them, Samus is still going to gain a small amount of money, which, because it would kind of be a little unfair to the player who maybe didn't realize that money was going to be a thing. You really need to learn about it at this moment because you are officially set loose here. So you maybe get a little bit, and maybe you get currency, kind of like how you get health pickups and missile expansions, just little orbs, and you'll just absorb some. But you would have gotten much more if you accepted it. So it will give you a little bit of money, but it will also net her the other big thing I want to add to this game, which is heroism. This is going to be a trait that the game is going to track, probably just in the menu itself, or maybe even not even show you. It probably should show you, just so the player understands that there's a trade-off to what they're choosing as they go out and they do these certain missions. Now, the idea is, like I said, to explore a huge 2D Metroid world, but actually get to be Samus while she's rising to fame as a bounty hunter. She doesn't just start as, this person who has no idea what she's doing. She needs to get stronger and get heroic, effectively. And in order to do that, the game really needs to track this, and the way to know that it's done, you've effectively beaten the game, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, is going to be tied to this heroism stat. So the game will start triggering things in the world based on how high this is. And this is going to get higher and higher based on the bounties that you fulfill and, how much you've acquired throughout the world, things like that.
So is it kind of like Dishonored, how that kind of system works, where the more kind of like chaotic you go after your targets, the more chaotic the world becomes, and you get like a bad ending?
I'm not planning on this having various endings based on how you act. It's more of like, this is a stat that will only increase. It's a matter of how much. So say you accepted the money, right? Which is, I mean, you still went into this place and you came out alive. Doesn't matter that, you took some money and you let these people live. You just have a little less heroism. And it's still just a stat that is just increasing throughout the game. Now, like I said, I don't want to make this an RPG. I really don't. But I feel like the way to trigger stuff organically in the world, and that's why it might even be a good idea to hide this stat. But, I mean, players are smart. They're going to figure out that it's there, and maybe not even knowing, what your stat is like may affect how they act. Maybe like in Metal Gear Solid 5, there's actually a hidden stat for how sinister Snake is becoming, and if it gets too high, he'll actually grow a horn. That's obviously a bit of an extreme measure, but it's tracking this stuff. And
I feel like there's a callback to like Fable in there.
Yeah, there's a lot of games that have done stuff like this, and I feel like it could be used here. And to be completely honest, this is the thing that I was most hesitant on adding in the game. Being a bounty hunting game, the money seems like the most logical thing that we got to add in here to make it function. Because otherwise, why are we ever supposed to accept that Samus, like I said earlier, for no reason, goes to save whole planets where she's not even getting paid? She's just down with this. She's made so much already, she doesn't even need to. She just goes around the world as an intergalactic superhero. So I feel like we gotta establish that, but let the player build up to that, and something they can kind of keep, playing and chipping away on. And something that also is important, that you can speedrun, because this would be, I don't want to keep going back to the Breath of the Wild, but it's just the current huge open game that would allow you to go all sorts of places. You can get stronger. You can get crazy strong if you want to, but you could also just grab a stick and run and whack Ganon in the face with it. So you could effectively run out of this place in your Zero suit and try and get to the final boss. Now, obviously it'd be really dangerous, but I would love to see people try and do that, especially in Metroid games where you have so much variety and what you can pick up. Some of the most interesting speedruns in Metroid are the ones where you can avoid a crazy amount of the pickups, and people do it on purpose to end with almost nothing. It's oh my god, it's crazy.
I love watching low percent runs.
Yes, they get more and more interesting as people find more exploits and crazy things they can do, which it's so interesting. And I feel like in a game like this, where as soon as you have money involved, people will figure out, if you invest in this early on, just for this weird exploit, you could totally
break the game.
Yeah, and not to the detriment of, now you go to every area, do the same trick, and every single boss is destroyed. Obviously, that's not good. You want it so that it's just a fun trick, and you can annihilate this boss by kind of like Dragon in Super, where you can electrocute him to death with your grappling beam, and you don't even have to fight the guy. Fun quirks like that, though it's kind of different. But anyway, you're still mostly exploring this huge interconnected map, and possibly with several different planets to explore, if that's another way to make it larger and more easily change the biome, kind of like what Prime 3 did. But basically, you're on your way, keeping an eye out for completing local bounties. And so this is something you're just doing while you're out on the fly. So you could kind of think of this like side quests. You're just kind of accumulating these as you keep going. And like I said, that heroism trait was primarily so that the game could more organically offer you bounties based on your level. Because you don't want it to offer you an extremely dangerous one right away, and that's pretty much all you have. So you're saying, I'm not going to do this till something better spawns. That's not really a great system. Though semi-randomness may be interesting with this. I don't know about it going too roguelike in being random, because then you're kind of messing with the whole speedrunner scene. So I'd rather not go that far, but that way if we hang on that heroism trait, I think we can avoid it. So you discover and you accept new bounties either in your ship or at like certain general points on the map, and you get a bit of lore from the senders of the contract. But aside from that, they're really just going to be like a simple, like, there's a large monster in this area, defeat this so that we can complete this task, or delivering a lost item. This hunter attacked us and stole this unit, recover the item, and each one of them is going to have a price on it. And the player is going to be able to choose what they want to tackle as they play and explore the world based on where they're at, maybe what's nearby, and of course judging the risk and reward based on what they get to see in here. So because of this, the game is going to be, I think it should be scaling very slightly in difficulty as Samus's heroism is increasing. So instead of just having simple zoomers moving around, maybe you have leveled up stronger versions that take a little bit more punishment. They might hit a little harder, but that way you don't get way too powerful, because in a game where you're giving Samus the ability to get uber strong, you can't just let her go back to basically Crateria and annihilate the early enemies, and there's no challenge there. It's basically just a long loading bar. Though there honestly is some joy to going back in an early area that beats you up and just wiping the floor with the enemies there. I kind of think, for the sake of the game being effective longer, I think they should scale up. So kind of like what Hollow Knight does with the Infected Crossroads. You defeat a certain boss, and the game then triggers. It's flipped to know, all right, enough time has passed. Make this area much scarier. And it's still an early area, and it's still based on those early enemies, but make it much tougher so that, going back, you see more stuff, maybe more paths open up, and you're able to find stuff. So these bounties should also be color-coded to let you know if you're going to be rewarded with money or maybe a power-up. So this is a way that, because this map is going to be really large, we want to make sure that the player isn't completely lost and they need the ice beam. Where are you going to get the ice beam? And this way you can actually see, okay, I got a bounty where I can go and pick up, I don't really want to make long beam a thing again. I don't know why that popped in my head, but I don't know, wave beam, anything. You want a new visor, right? You want X-ray visor because you're nervous about missing everything, and you found something that pops up, you want to prioritize this. That way you can kind of quickly color code and sort these things and figure out what you want to do based on where you're at. So that's, for the most part, the majority of the game until we get towards the ending. So the final bounty, once we get a high enough heroism, is going to come from the Galactic Federation. And they're effectively catching wind of how successful you are after ditching them. So I would assume they're a little on the butthurt side. So this is going to be a uniquely colored challenge, so the player immediately should know this is different, probably end game. And that's effectively what this is going to be. This is going to be your final mission. So taking this on and going to this place and trying to beat this boss is going to, if I jump a little ahead of myself, it is going to open up a post-game where the events of what I'm going to tell you have already happened, and you can go back and continue to explore and find new stuff that have unlocked because of all the damage that's going to happen. So it turns out that this alien race from the beginning is actually the same race that the Galactic Federation is having a problem with. And it turns out that they have a contract for you to slaughter a certain huge monster, this ultimate monster that they've supposedly been creating. And they want you to go in and do it because they've heard of this mission that you've done where you went in there, they took you down, they took you prisoner, and you single-handedly beat your way out of there. So you go in there, and based on how deep into Metroid the listeners go, if you have read the Metroid manga, then you will know that there is another race that suspiciously goes after other races and takes the best parts of them and tries to create an ultimate monster, and that is Ridley. Now, I didn't want to do this, but I love Ridley so much. I'm sorry, this is my game. I'm driving this train. So you start fighting your way down here, and you find out that the creature held in this deep underground cell looks a whole lot like Ridley. Now, no, this is not actually the one and only Ridley. But you can tell his design is basically a heavily mutated version of these reptilian guys with their same armor and torn robes. He's clearly a very mutated one of them. And they were trying to grab all of these, like, this race can recover its wounds extremely quickly, and this one's extremely intelligent, and they put it all into this one creature. And so you set the thing loose, you let it out of its cell, and effectively this is your final boss fight, defeating this Ridley lookalike. As you're fighting it, the armor's blasting off of it, the robes are getting more torn and tattered as you're fighting the guy jumping around the room, and you defeat him, and the room starts shaking. The lights turn up, and you see dozens of similar holding pods all in the background, all light up and open. And dozens of these are set out in the environment. Ooh. And from this point, lore-wise, so like I was saying, they were effectively genetically creating their own species to create what the Ridley is, and long ago had actually sold their initial prototype to the space pirates, who kind of recognized this creature's insane power and intelligence and, like, personally ranked it up to their own commanding officer. So that way that can happen way back when. But since they had made that initial sale, they realized how powerful this was, and they kept it themselves and kept working on it to try and make their own ultimate creature, to make this unstoppable force so that the space pirates aren't the dominant species, it's them. So the real Ridley, their prototype, is completely not in this game. You will not see him. But you do get to destroy every single clone in here. Now, you're not going to one-on-one boss battle all of these, because as soon as they all start releasing, Samus is like, oh heck no, starts a self-destruction sequence to destroy the entire facility, and hopefully take all of these out in one fell swoop. And as soon as she does this, she needs to quickly escape before time expires, of course. And every Ridley, I'm just going to call them Ridleys, is roaming and chasing after her throughout the entire map, no matter where she goes. They are everywhere. They're also attacking the locals and the wildlife. So they're all on their own AI doing their own thing. So if I'm kind of stealing a little thing from Metroid Dread, basically like Emmys, but they're Ridleys, and they're way bigger, and they're way meaner. And you need to somehow get out of this place before time expires and get to your ship and blast away, blow up the facility, beat the game, credits roll, and cheers, hurrah! Samus is now so awesome, the Galactic Federation cannot help but give her a mission to take down a similar creature that is working on planet Zebes and defeat the Metroids and Mother Brain. And Larry's on mute.
Uh-oh.
Ah, there we go. I was saying, I like it. Now, normally we would we'd workshop and play with this idea for a little bit, but you've kind of gone so deep with it, I don't know what to kind of fill in the blank in. Yeah. So we're gonna skip a step this evening, and I'm gonna say I want to know what's the title.
You know, if you make me do it,
I'm making you do it.
Metroid Wet Sock. No, you know,
it's locked in. There's no going back.
If I really had to, I would probably call it Metroid Bounty, just so that the player or the people looking at this would know right away what this is all about and how it's going to establish on Samus's career, her fame. But you know what? It could just be called Metroid Wet Sock.
You know what? Because you said Metroid Bounty, and my brain's like roll of paper towels. On the other hand, Metroid Contract.
Ooh,
yeah, that's cool.
Ooh, yeah. No,
I
like
was
that.
including
kind of a
anything
sexy
Metroid
feel to
Hunter
it.
because of we have Prime Hunters, and I feel like you just call it Hunter. It would just sound weird. I don't want it to seem like it's a remake of anything, and this is so different, but at the same time, it's still so very Metroid. And I honestly, if this game came out, I wouldn't really second guess too much of the steps. Either you could argue forward or backward because there's some different things in here, but I think it's healthy to experiment, especially when you're getting mainline games. So as soon as we get a mainline Metroid 5, then it doesn't matter. You can start doing the crazy stuff. Now, I mean, Metroid Prime Pinball could only exist because they're messing around. They want to make a bunch of crazy weird stuff, but
Pinball was awesome though.
Yeah, it is. I want to make sure that it's still something healthy that's going to be fun for the core Metroid audience. They're gonna go into this, the speedrunners love this. The people who just want to run around and explore and get bigger and stronger love this. People want to spend hundreds of hours in a video game, which notoriously Metroid, you can't really do that unless you're just getting better and better at running it faster.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I really like how this kind of workshops. Yeah, Metroid Contract. Yeah, I would play it. Yeah.
I'd be in for it.
I'm trying to think of some art that I could do for it.
I really want to see what this alt Ridley looks like with like the half armor and the torn robes. I mean, we basically threw the Metroid Outlaw. You took that whole concept art of Western Samus with the billowing cape idea, and just as I was writing this up, I was thinking, oh my god, do that to Ridley. But still,
yeah.
I mean, gameplay-wise, there's so many things that I feel like could be added healthily to this. Just a Metroid game in general, you want to go around and how do you make the speed booster, and the Shine Spark work better in a 2D environment? Because we haven't seen it in a while. Probably coming back in Dread, but we'll see.
I'd say especially based off some of the comments from our talk with Steve several episodes back by the time you guys hear this. But yeah, there was good reason we didn't see the speed booster in Samus Returns, but it sounds like that reason is now no longer an issue going into Dread. So
yeah, I can't imagine that the frame rate is going to be holding them back anymore, especially when there's a certain Emmy that's dashing after Samus and just might give her the speed booster. I don't know. I just really love having all sorts of weird ways that you can, one, explore the terrain, but also fight with the same upgrade. And the Speed Booster / Shine Spark is a really creative, weird one. And coming up with more of those is always fun.
Yeah.
No, I concur. Well, I think here's a good place to wrap for the evening and for this episode then. So I want to say thank you to everybody that tuned in to listen. Thank you to my co-pilot, Isabel. Thank you to our guest, Alex HampsterBomb, this evening. And, just your reminder, make sure if you enjoyed this that you go back and that you've got us locked into your RSS feed along with, our gracious overlord network of World 1-1. Make sure you follow Phazon Labs on Twitter, at Phazon Labs. Follow Isabel on Twitter, at Metroid35. Make sure you go peep Alex on Twitter over at HampsterBomb, Alex?
Yes.
Got it right. Yeah. Got it. One. So, and I think we'll wrap up there for the evening. So I want to say thank you to everybody for tuning in again, and we'll see you all next week. Everybody, see you next mission. Peace!
Bye!
See ya!